Hello YouTube. This is from the files of Valentin Psalomshikov, the Russian scientist, paranormal researcher, and writer that I've mentioned in a number of my other videos. He had a great number of connections in the USSR among different strata, and he was involved in truly interesting subjects research. The beginning of this story was like that of a detective adventure. In the autumn of 1971, two military men arrived at the Department of Experimental Atmospheric Physics of the Leningrad Hydrometeorological Institute, and they asked for advice on an unusual phenomenon that they recorded on a film sensitive in the infrared region of the spectrum. The head of the department, Professor Kachurin, and Psalomshikov, a graduate student at that time, they locked themselves together with the guests in the Institute's cinema booth, and turning the 16mm film projector towards the sheet of paper hanging on the wall, they began to view the film that the military men had brought with them. Only a minimum of information was given to them about the place of this action, a military scientific training ground in Karelia. Installed in a special booth at a height of about 10 meters above the ground, the movie camera through the EOP, electron optical converter, took a panorama of a distant forest. The filming lasted for about a minute every half hour. This was determined by the limit of the film in the cassette. What, why, and so forth, the scientists did not have to know. That's what the military told them. The only additional information that the camera was installed in the north direction, and this additional information was given to the scientists very reluctantly. Unfortunately, the purpose of this filming remained unknown to Psalomshikov. On that day, the camera turned on for the first time around 22 o'clock, and until 1 o'clock in the morning there was nothing remarkable in the frame, especially on the black and white film. On the EOP screen there would be a slightly different picture. It glows green, and a strip of lighter green distant forest stood out against the dark sky. And here on the frames filmed around 1 o'clock in the morning, a glowing edge of something appeared above the edge of the forest. During the shooting, 1 minute duration, this something rose up, ascended, turning into a segment of a huge glowing disk, as if the sun of some alien planet was rising over the forest. A minute passed, and the footage shot in the next half hour appeared in a leap. In it, the alien sun leaned out from behind the forest almost halfway, and this frankly looked very creepy. It was 10 times larger than our sun in angular dimensions. The scientists were looking forward to the next shots, but at 1:30 the picture returned to the original one. The alien sun was rapidly sinking behind the forest. That's all. The military guests said that they had observed such a phenomenon only one time during the filming. Has anyone seen anything in the optical range? No. There were no people there, and those who were within a radius of 10 kilometers were asleep by that time. Only the image was taken. The sound was not recorded. Unfortunately, Professor Kachurin and Psalomshikov just threw up their hands at that time. None of them had seen anything like this and had not read about such phenomenon in the literature. Psalomshikov only joked that he had seen such a huge sun in the illustration for Herbert Wells' novel The Time Machine. This is how the hero of the novel saw it millions of years later. But the military guests objected that their sun was rising in the north. Perhaps this story would have been forgotten over the years, but at the end of the 1970s, Psalomchikov had to see this firsthand, and without any EOP, as they say, he saw it with his own eyes. In the summer of that year, he and his institute friend, Doctor of Physical and Mathematical Sciences Nikita Dubrovich, they sailed on a boat near the eastern shore of Ladakha. They were having a vacation, rest. Due to the negligence of the Doctor of Sciences, who forgot to pour oil, the diesel crankshaft liners burned down, and they were stuck on one of the uninhabited islands, with the prospect of sharing the fate of Robinson Crusoe. Deciding that the morning of the was more complicated, the boat's crew, and it also included 3 female students of their institute, well, they lit a fire and began to cook dinner. Since Psalomchikov went to the shore to fetch the water, he saw this phenomenon first, and out in the nature, that phenomenon, it looked even more eerie. A blood-red glow began to slowly creep out of the horizon over the invisible eastern shore of Ladakha, which he initially mistook that phenomenon for a giant fire on the shore. But when it ascended higher, turning into the edge of a huge dark red disk, the scientist was reminded of footage from a war movie. In about 10 minutes, the disk of the alien sun came out of the horizon by about a third, and only then Psalomchikov came to his senses and called the others. This time, the moon was shining in the sky, and it was possible to compare the angular dimensions of these luminaries. The disk was 30 times larger than the moon. That is, its angular dimension exceeded 15 degrees. But this is only at the moment when it has only risen by a third from the horizon. They all had a terrible feeling, both from misunderstanding what was happening and from the blood-red color of the disk. Psalomchikov would like to remind his readers that the witnesses of the phenomenon were 2 senior researchers and 3 young people with incomplete higher meteorological education, that is, people accustomed to natural phenomena. This phenomenon unfolded in utter silence. Only the lapping of the waves was heard. It lasted a total of about half an hour, after which the disk began to sink below the horizon. But even after the full immersion, a faint red glow was observed over the place for some time. Upon his return to Leningrad, Psalomchikov told Professor Imyanitov, head of the Laboratory of Atmospheric Electricity at the main geophysical laboratory. Well, he told him what he had seen. But that professor could not explain what Psalomchikov observed. However, he found in his files a similar case described by a naval cadet whose last name was Dobush. Here it goes. I still remember the phenomenon that I observed in the city of Gubaha, Perm region, in November 1975. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, the guys and I were playing hockey. Suddenly, a red glow appeared from behind the forest, which grew and expanded. When it occupied a quarter of the sky from the horizon, the oval border of red turned first yellow and then green. After that, a fiery tongue stretched out from the glow in a vertical direction. A red spot separated from it, which began to move away quickly until it disappeared from view, and the glow began to slowly decrease in size and gradually disappeared behind the trees. Moreover, a quiet noise was heard, similar to the sound of the surf. The whole phenomenon lasted about 20 minutes. 2 years later, Psalomchikov was on a business trip to the Central Asian Hydrometeorological Institute, CSHIS. Two of his employees told the scientists the story of how the phenomenon of an alien sun was observed by them during the day. They were driving a Soviet UAZ vehicle across the Kazakh steppe or savanna. The sky was clear, but somehow whitish, apparently because of white color, because of a thin dust haze. And now, from behind the horizon in the direction they were going, a great disk, darker than the firmament, began to rise. Rising higher and higher, it acquired gigantic dimensions, occupying a fifth of the visible horizon in the maximum phase. Amazed by the sight, people got out from the vehicle. It even seemed to them that the rather strong wind blowing towards them had significantly subsided. The radio that had been working in the car all the time, now it fell silent. As in previous cases, the disk rose above the horizon by only half the diameter and then began to sink back. When part of it was still visible, the radio started working, and then the wind increased again. There are several other cases of observations of the phenomenon of this alien sun. An explanation also emerged, which in fact does not explain anything, replacing one riddle or one enigma with another. Supposedly, we really observe the sun in a parallel world, but for some reason, the barrier between our worlds sometimes becomes translucent. So far, there is no other more reasonable explanation for this phenomenon. Now, I want to add to this that the location of this strange, inexplicable so far phenomena includes Karelia, that's in the Russian northwest, the Ural Mountains, Lake Ladoga, and Kazakhstan. I have described fascinating paranormal phenomena in each of them before, and you can see it in my videos. Well, today you learned about one more such phenomenon, and I'll be presenting more, of course, in my future videos. If you can support my research, please find the links in the description to this video. Please kindly subscribe to my channel and tell others. Thank you.